The Rebel Capitalist Show.
We always talk about investing and kind of growing your wealth or growing what you have, but we don't always talk about how to make money from scratch. And this is something you are an absolute pro at. So I really want to kind of get into that, get into the weeds and get your advice. And we can just start at a very basic level as to how you would suggest just the average people out there, whether they're 20 years old or 60 years old, create maybe an online business or a side hustle or any business. It doesn't matter if it's brick and mortar. How can they go about making additional money in this time that's so tumultuous and so volatile?
I taught at a USC class yesterday. It was virtual. And all the kids were freaking out. I was like, how many of you are scared right now? Like 50% of the hands go up. I'm like, how many of you are excited? Another like 50% of hands go up. So it's a good combination. But what I was telling them was, I was like, look, again, nobody is going to come save you. You have to fend for yourself. So I think starting, having a business that's one thing, no matter what business you decide to do. But I think also looking at, George, what you're doing with the content that you're creating, that is a compounding machine that doesn't stop. That to me is still investing. And Naval Ravikant always says there's 4 different ways to get leverage, right? You have code, you have capital, you have media, and you have labor. A lot of people forget about the media piece. And so I think no matter where you start, I'm 20 years old right now. How do I get things going? Well, you know what? Start documenting your journey. Start, let's call it Journey to 1 million podcast. And then after you get to 1 million, Journey to 10 million podcast. And you just document how you're doing things. And in, 2-3 years or so, you're actually going to have enough experience where you are the expert. And then you can start to move over to teaching. Right. And so, again,
these are things you can do with a full-time job. It's not like you have to choose one or the other. It's something you can do evenings, weekends, while you're growing that audience. And then once you grow to a certain level, then maybe you can transition over. But it's always kind of a great plan B, as long as you're doing something that you enjoy talking about. I think that's probably key.
That's important. I mean, there's do you know you've had Anthony Pompliano on your podcast or no?
I have not. No, we've gone back and forth a couple times on Twitter, but I haven't had the opportunity. I'd love to in the future.
So he's great, super smart guy, but his brother is incredible too. So I don't know if you've been following his brother, but his brother's been tweeting about the intersection between sports and business. And his following has, like, 12 weeks ago, he'd never produced content online. And now he's saying, just yesterday, he's like, oh, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to go full time on content creation. He's got sponsors now. He's just got really good stuff going on. And obviously his brother has helped him. So
after 12 weeks,
12 weeks. Yeah. So all this to say is that, look, you start providing something you put something out there that's interesting, that's unique, that's helpful to people. And if you don't think you can document the very beginning. And Gary Vee's a perfectly good example. He's he's a personality, but he's also a business guy too. And all he doesn't really think about topics to teach. He did that before, but he used to have before all this craziness hit. He would have a camera guy following him around, 2 different camera guys following him around, and that would be his show. So I just don't think there's any excuse, because if you want to be protected moving forward, we have no idea what's going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. We kind of have a sense. But what's defensible long term? It's your brand, it's your moat. Warren Buffett talks about how it takes forever to build it up and how you can lose it in 5 minutes, right? I'm just paraphrasing, but I think it's important. And so if you're good, look, Naval Ravikant, billionaire, founder of AngelList, built his following off of Twitter. You have Jason Lemkin, who's got the biggest software conference in the world, or software as a service conference, SaaStr. He built it off of Quora, right? For me, it was really off of, I would argue more of podcasts. For Neil, my podcast co-host, he started off blogging first. So just find what you're good at, start there, and then you can start to get more complex as things go on.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 takeaways there. Number one, you find a niche that you enjoy talking about. And I want to be very clear, this niche doesn't have to be broad. It doesn't have to be like health and fitness or cars or digital marketing or making money online. Or I mean, look at my channel is a perfect example of that. I mean, who would have thought, macroeconomics, it's the most esoteric thing. Who's going to want to find out about the repo market? Nobody.
Yeah.
But I've heard of people that have been wildly successful online that are in very, very small niches. I mean, like certain types, not just horseback riding, but like certain types of horseback riding. And then they niche down even further, and it's like fitness for certain types of horseback riders. And then, it's not just dogs, it's about a certain type of dog or small dog. I mean, it's limitless. In fact, one of the gentlemen that we were fortunate enough to have dinner with in Puerto Rico, he's in the business of selling pet supplies, I believe, wasn't it? So
Yep.
he wasn't really on the content creation side, but he found this niche where he could, I think he buys, I don't know where he buys the pet supplies, but he's got this online store, and I believe an Amazon store, that he sells this, and he makes a ton of money. And it's really about figuring out kind of digital marketing and algorithms and Facebook ads and Google ads, which I think is interesting because a lot of people wouldn't connect the dots between that and gaming. And I know a lot of guys, especially young guys, are interested in video games. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when you were young, you were really interested in video games and trying to figure out how to solve the puzzle and try to, like, how to figure out or how to beat the game. And you kind of took that interest in video games, and it was very similar to now your interest in digital marketing, because it's the same type of thing. You're trying to figure out how to achieve a certain objectives and analyze numbers and reverse engineer things. So anyway, so we've got the niche there, but then once you get the niche, then you need to decide what you're most comfortable with as far as video, which would be YouTube, audio, podcasting, or writing, which would be blogs. And then once you kind of hone in on what you're an expert at or what you enjoy doing, then you leverage that to create more content through that one kind of main pillar. Am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And by the way, the whole gaming thing, I actually have this this notepad over here. What's the vision? It's to level up the world, right? It's a very grand thing that I'll never accomplish in my lifetime, and that's what a vision slash mission is. And so we can talk about that later. But you know, it when you talk about yes, a pillar piece of content, we call it content sprouting. So
Okay.
for example, this video interview that we're doing right now, this can easily be chopped up into 10 or 15 different video segments that you put onto your YouTube. So Joe Rogan does a good job of chopping up his
Clips.
pieces
Yeah.
because they 2-hour videos, right? And then automatically these can become smaller audio segments too. You push it to sure, you can push it to podcast, but you push it to YouTube. You can also push it to your IGTV, all the different social profiles. And so the whole idea here is that one piece can now become 50 or 60 different pieces, right? You have an entire team working around it. And the goal now with social, when you're posting content, the problem is, people have seen the social dilemma and all that. Yes, your attention is split. They're all trying to vie for your attention, right? Whether it's Netflix or Facebook or WhatsApp, whatever. So the idea here is you're aiming for reach. You want as much reach as you get, because it used to be in marketing that if you want people to take an action, so buy something, it would be the rule of 7, right? And there's a rule of 7 for investing, I guess, too. But so there's that. But
What's the rule
now,
of 7? Does that mean there's like 7 touch points required before
yeah.
someone psychologically is prepared to buy because they know, like, and trust you, or what is
Yeah.
that?
So 7 impressions before someone takes an action. That's kind of the old marketing rule. I would argue it's maybe 14 or 21 now, just because our attention is so split.
Hmm. Okay, I see. So the strategy is to take that one piece of content and try to leverage it to create more touch points. That's
Yep.
kind of the end objective. And I'd use this interview as another example. What I do is I have a gal in Medellin that takes my interviews and she transcribes them and turns them into search engine friendly blog posts. So so for the listeners or viewers who are watching this now that have gone to my website and maybe seen a blog post, it's not me there writing it out. Trust me, you don't want to read anything I write. I'm the worst writer on earth, but I've got this gal, Maria, that takes these and then, she knows English extremely well, transcribes them, and then she has been trained on how to insert keywords and titles and pictures to make it more friendly for the Google search engine. So that's an example. I'm not doing any extra work, none, zero. And what we're doing is we're creating another piece of content that is very search friendly, that can drive people to your website and get another touch point as a result.